I'm Brian Walsh, and I'm the future correspondent for Axios. Our final guest is the Global Defense Lead for Palantir Technologies, Doug Philippone, joining us from Washington, D.C. Doug, it's great to see you.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me.
So, Doug, Palantir has said that it wants to be the central operating system for all U.S. defense programs. What does that really mean in practice?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So if you think about how Palantir started and the challenges that we were facing, it was about connecting information hubs, databases, sensors, and so forth to help people make decisions. And if you think about where we are today, there's a huge challenge, I think, in the Department of Defense in particular, is they've been using systems for 50 plus years in terms of IT type things. And a lot of them don't talk to each other. They're at different phases of their life cycle. And then at the cutting edge, you have these exquisite sensors and new AI platforms that all need to be connected. And so they have to be interoperable. You have to build an architecture that connects them so that data can flow and that people can make decisions. So that's the core of our business. When you talk about the operating system, it's about facilitating people making decisions.
Just to take one recent example, Palantir was not long ago awarded a contract to provide the data fabric and analytics foundation for the Army's Capability Drop 2 program. How will that be executed, and how's that going to show, again, what Palantir is doing?
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's super exciting. We've been working on it for, I think the competition lasted a year and a half or so. So it was a good win. But basically, it's a data fabric where there's regional nodes and then edge nodes around the world so that you can move data and information around and then perform workflows on top of that information. And so like the lifeblood, I think, the Army Futures Command people call data is like the new ammunition for the military. And so you have to have the architecture that will move that data around with, synchronizing it so there's no duplication or destruction, and then protecting access controls along the way. And then you have all sorts of tooling on top of it so that they can perform their workflows and then plug in AI on the top. So it's an exciting project. It's a big project that we're really happy about.
Given the recent U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, the Pentagon's not going to have boots on the ground there to monitor terror or any other kind of threats within the country. So again, thinking about data and how it can help us gather intelligence, and how can Palantir's work help manage what's going to be an over-the-horizon approach to Afghanistan going forward?
Yeah, so I mean that specific problem really highlights one of our most recent product innovations. We call it an AI inference platform. And so what that platform allows the DoD and some commercial customers to do is move AI to the edge. And so what we allow is take AI vendors, either it's us or other third-party vendors, can now collaborate with micromodels on drones, on submarines, on vehicles, on planes, and even up to satellites. So that's super exciting because there's a bunch of challenges with AI. And if you want to be able to see over the horizon, you have to, start with integrated data. That's kind of our bread and butter. And then once you have that, then you can start to apply artificial intelligence. And so it's super exciting, but what it allows you to do then is you can use very specific models. You can change the models on the fly. The models learn faster, and you can help people make decisions faster because that's what you need to do.
Now, you yourself actually served with special operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan in the 2000s. I'm just curious, how does the ability for troops and officers to really process data in those operations differ now, again, thanks to the work of Palantir and other companies, compared to your experience being in the field in the past?
Yeah, when I discovered, I started Palantir, I started the defense business, so I know, none of this stuff existed. And so my time as a commander, there was so much information, and most of the time you couldn't get to it. And so you didn't know what you didn't know. And so it was hard to keep track of the information you did have, but then processing like national level capabilities or new innovations, many times we would have these exquisite sensors or things, but you didn't have access to them or know that they even existed. And so, one of the things I think about is like a lifetime of service to the nation is this idea that helping them bring all the decision making ability, like in terms of bringing this information together so they can make better decisions. I mean, it makes me super proud. It's more and more complex every day, and young commanders have to do a lot. And so, I personally really enjoy helping them.
You talk about AI, and it's always sort of interesting to tease out. We talk about data science, talk about AI, but specifically, the role that AI is going to come in bringing all this data together. I mean, it's not like a decision-making process, as far as I understand, but is it rather sort of, here's a very efficient way to collect, collate, and analyze what just is an ever-increasing stream of data in the battle space or just within the defense sphere more broadly?
Well, I mean, AI certainly has a role. So the biggest challenge that you're going to see with near peer competition is you have to make decisions. It all goes back to decision making, and you have to to the best of your ability, get all the information in front of you as fast as possible and make an informed decision. I'm not a big fan of taking the human out of the loop here, but it's about giving recommendations and having the humans see things that they would never be able to see. And so again, that starts with having integrated data. And then depending on the certain models that you would have, you can make recommendations and see things that you would never have or be able to. And you can do it on the fly, especially if you think about putting more and more things in space and understanding like how do you get ahead of a hypersonic thing? It's like you have to get ahead of the launch. And so how do you see the patterns that will help you in that situation is really important.
And talking about near peer competitors, the U.S. has really long been the technological leader when it comes to defense space, and far and away. But other countries are catching up, certainly. And just recently, the former software chief of the Pentagon was quoted saying that China, in his view, already had a definitive lead in and cyber intelligence in the defense sphere. How do you think the U.S. now compares to China there, and how concerned are you that that advantage that we may have right now may not continue in the future?
Yeah, no. Well, thanks for that. So I did hear about the scuttlebutt of his remarks. I didn't read them personally, but my personal opinion on this issue is that AI is a hard field, and when you think about, I have a mathematics degree, so I know how to build algorithms myself. But it's not just about the algorithm. And there's kind of two things that I talk about when I talk about AI. It's like it has to be functional, it has to actually work, and then it has to be useful. And so there's no doubt that China is throwing a ton of energy into this, and that they probably have more AI projects than we do. But what I don't know is that how much of that is functional and how much of it is useful. So that's a really hard challenge. And so, but my personal opinion on this is that we can't let our foot off the gas here. And so they will catch us. But we do have, a distinct, we're really good at software. I say we in general, the nation, are the best at software. So if we screw this up, it's our own fault, I guess is the bottom line.
Well, part of the reason we're so good at software, of course, is because of the power, the skill, the scale of those companies in Silicon Valley. But is there enough cooperation, in your opinion, between the tech firms of Silicon Valley and the Department of Defense? Again, thinking about China, that those two, their tech side, and I think their government and military side, they're more hand in glove. In the U.S., maybe a bit less so. Does that need to change in the future? Do we have to have a closer relationship?
Well, we definitely have to have. Yes, we have to have a close relationship. I mean, the acquisition process is super long. The government could improve. The government needs to stop working against commercial entities and work with them in terms of like picking winners, investing in this, and wanting to win. And so, again, it's like if we have the best and brightest startups who are trying to work on this and they can't get contracts or help in any meaningful way, that's not a good thing. And so, acquisition reform isn't a new thing, but we definitely need to be serious about investing in our winners, helping industry, help the government, because China certainly is doing that.
Just one last quick question for the audience. What are the cybersecurity risks around AI in the military that you worry about the most?
Yeah, well, look, you have to, if you're moving data through a model and then processing somewhere, you have to have really good encryption. And so, figuring out, there's always problems with space and thinking about what unknown risk is out there. But as a safety thing, it's like AI is very specific in terms of what the model is built around and what sensor it's working on, and then what learning data that it's built off of. You can get more generalized, but it's not quite as scary as you think. I mean, in terms of like stealing the IP of an entire company, yes, but there's a bunch of challenges where if you think of either, well, I don't know, I'll stop there, but there's definitely risks, and we shouldn't screw around, but it's pretty specific.
Doug Philippone from Palantir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.